Hi guys, how's it going? In this video we're going to examine, wait a minute. In this video we are going to look into the absolute absurdity of the pro-Brexit economic columnist that writes in the Telegraph, our main man Matthew Lynn. Now, we did look at this numpty before, and I will insert a link somewhere along this video above my head so that you can make up your own mind. So let's go. Now, again, if you could hit the like and subscribe icon, it really does help the channel out greatly. And if you wish to share it with your friends, especially, by the way, this is for Verti here, especially if they are in the marginal constituencies and voted for Brexit, it would be even more beneficial in our goal to reverse the madness that is Brexit. Okay? Now, let's look at the headline. Britain can easily bear a trade war with Europe and could end up stronger. The UK can survive a trade conflict with the rest of Europe, but businesses need to start wargaming that right now. Well, the first thing I want to point out here is that there is absolutely no guarantee and a high degree of probability that a trade war will not just be confined to Europe. So let's get that point cleared and squared away. There isn't a person in the UK that doesn't know that the US are behind the Republic of Ireland and the EU's genuine efforts to ensure that a border in Ireland is avoided at all costs, and thereby applying the rules and recommendations of the Good Friday Agreement. We are also very well aware that despite Bojo and Farage having their bestest mate in the whole wide world occupy the White House for 4 years during Brexit negotiations, and thereby giving the UK the perfect platform to negotiate a trade deal, they came as close to securing such a deal as I did to becoming an astronaut. Okay? His next point, however, reminds me that's of some kind of childish playground taunt. And what I mean by this, it's the sort of stuff we've become accustomed to listening, and it's devoid of any sense of the reality on the ground. And it went like this: the electricity might be cut off, punitive tariffs could be slapped onto cars and other exports. Now, he went on to say, would you believe that, and I'm quoting here, the trade deal with Britain might be scrapped, leading to the imposition of quotas, rules and levies on anything that moves across the English Channel. Now, the first thing I'd say to that is, no shit, Sherlock. Let's examine this claim that tariffs could be slapped onto cars and other exports. Firstly, it's only Nissan that is exporting cars out of the UK in any real numbers. Okay, Ford are doing it with their Transit van also. But in cars, it's basically Nissan. In real numbers. And that company is owned by the French. Second, under WTO rules that the UK seems set on adopting if they follow his policy, the EU does not have any choice but to impose tariffs if there is not a trade agreement in place under the very WTO rules that Lynn is talking about. Okay? You cannot be operating on one set of rules for one member of the WTO and another set of rules for another member of the WTO unless you have a trade agreement, which is why the UK got the TCA. But you see, he deliberately weaponizes his words by using the adjective like punitive when he knows full well that the tariffs he refers to that could, and let's face it, probably would be imposed, or may be imposed, or will be imposed, would simply be a mirror of those of other nations with whom the EU trades under those WTO rules. But then he makes further incendiary comments like, no one, at least as far as we know, is yet planning to land troops on the beaches of Kent. But there are plenty of reports that the European Union is drawing up plans for a full-scale trade war with the UK if Article 16 is triggered and the painfully negotiated Northern Ireland Protocol is scrapped. Now, the painfully negotiated Northern Ireland Protocol is scrapped. Painfully negotiated, that's not something that should be applying to anybody in the UK. EU, yes. UK, no. Okay? Now, when I hear learned guys, especially authors of war stories, as he is, mention any form of military intervention, even if it's just a denial, I know that they do so with a purpose to stoke fears in people that think, oh yeah, but what if you're wrong? And as we should constantly remind ourselves, they are also aware that the British Navy has been deployed many times and was actively involved in intimidation and protection of fishing vessels on many occasions, but not against a nation that also has a considerable military fleet. His words are stoking a nationalist agenda that suits his ability to point the blame finger at everybody but himself for the mess that he encouraged, i.e. Brexit. Okay? And my thought on this charlatan, on this gutter press cockroach, is compounded when he added, sure, everyone hopes it doesn't come to that, but if it does, businesses are going to be on the front line. This is deliberate, this is inflammatory, it is careless, and it is most definitely dangerous, as he calls on companies to be prepared. But then his sanity veers off into the abyss of ignorance and stupidity, because his solution is to advise companies, are you ready for this? They need to start preparing for that now. Like how? Like how? Here's how. By working with the government to make sure there is plenty of energy available by switching to export markets outside the EU. Who does this idiot think he is? By switching to export markets outside the EU. I mean, this guy is the Telegraph's economic columnist. He knows that the UK has less deals with countries now than it ever had. He knows that those deals are even worse than the deals that the UK, according to him, were subjected to until the UK was rescued out of the most successful trading alliance in history. He advises companies to dust off all the no-deal planning that they had done 2 years ago so that companies will be ready in the blink of an eye, and further advises that the UK, and again I'm quoting and asking that you take note of the language this clown is using, dust off all of that no-deal planning and getting ready to switch to World Trade Organization terms in the blink of an eye. The UK can survive a trade conflict with the rest of Europe, but businesses need to start wargaming that right now, because the better prepared they are, the easier it will be to sail through it. Now again, you can hear the use of the word war and conflict being used as if to prepare the nation for some form of invasion by a foreign power. But at least he does allude to the fact that he does know that Article 16 doesn't mean unilateral withdrawal, where he says there may be an element of bluster involved. Even so, preparations are clearly being made if Article 16 is triggered and the protocol scrapped unilaterally. Then he advises we should inevitably expect some form of retaliation, and we are already starting to get a pretty good idea of what that will look like. Now, the retaliation he's talking about is abiding by WTO rules. That's it. It's not doing anything other than abiding by WTO rules, which means sanctions, tariffs, quotas, all of that stuff. Okay? But no sooner has he demonstrated his knowledge of reality, he attempts to lay out the battle plans of the big bad EU, which goes like this. The draft EU plan has 3 elements. It would cut off our undersea cables and pipes that supply the UK with 10% of its electricity and 12% of its gas. It will impose tariffs on British exports to the EU up to the permitted levels under WTO rules. It would impose tariffs on British exports to the EU up to the permitted levels under WTO rules. Okay, so I ask, how does he know all of this? What has he got to imagine? He's got some inside track? He attempts to propagate a theory that the EU would be determined to snarl up cross-border traffic and red tape by various means. Of course, he forgets to completely mention that many EU companies would also be affected by this. And when I say this, I mean Brexit under WTO rules would be affected by this. Now, let's take a look at this crap. The EU want to bully the UK into accepting its terms. With goodwill on both sides being in painfully short supply, it won't get to that stage and a compromise can be worked out. In a trade war, however, companies are the infantry and the trucks, customs forms and export departments are the main weapons. Again, this clown is using deliberate military terminology. Okay, he advises 3 strands. First and most importantly is to work with the government to make sure there's plenty of energy to ride out the storm. Cutting off the supplies of gas and electricity that flows under the cables and pipes under the channel is unquestionably the most potent weapon in the EU's arsenal. Okay, he goes on to say the UK is a huge market for European electricity, but then he turns around and he says it's 12%, so it's not that big. And once it's closed off, it is unlikely the trade will ever recover. Now, on that he is right. If the EU did switch off that switch, what he's actually saying here is that UK businesses would fail to recover and it's lights out for everybody in the UK. Not in Europe, in the UK. His next sagely advice involves dropping down to like some Harry Potter shop to buy a wand made from unicorn hair, because that's exactly what the UK manufacturers will need to sell their products to markets even further afield. But it's okay. He has a plan. Wait for it, now be calm. The UK currently sells 17 billion of road vehicles into the EU and 10% tariffs would definitely hit that. True, but it should be possible to sell most of those vehicles into the booming markets in the Middle East, Africa and Asia instead, where tariffs won't change. But the planning needs to start now. Really? Now, all of this needs to happen here is for all those Mickey Mouse companies like Mercedes and Toyota and Nissan to go to sleep for 2 years and hope that the big companies like Dongfeng in China or Chery in China or Tata in India say, oh no, let's the Brits have all that business, we don't need it. You know, and by the way, just 1 minute, there isn't a single UK-owned manufacturing vehicle company in the UK. They're all owned by outsiders. And to let you know, Dubai applies equality to all nations with which it trades. And if it doesn't, it applies to all nations under WTO rules. So guess what? There is no trade advantage. But such a policy would have sod-all use to the British economy, as those factories that currently produce the cars on large production lines will be pulled out in a heartbeat. They're not owned by the UK stock exchange. They're owned by European companies. Guys, I could go on commenting on this liar, this cheat, this charlatan, but I fear, as Thomas Gray famously said, I may be wasting my sweetness on the desert air. Thanks for watching. See you on the flip side. Take care.